Hello everybody, and welcome back once again to Let's Play Suzerain, the second playthrough. Bit of a strange one really, because I stockpiled 6 videos back in June, anticipating finishing the whole campaign and uploading it pretty swiftly when I had the video stockpiled. Anyway, long story short, as most of you will be aware at this point, I ended up having a bit of a ill health moment or two between June and, well, pretty much September really. It is now the 1st of August, and 1st of October rather, and you're seeing this on the 1st of October, so I haven't actually recorded a session of this since June. So obviously I've had to edit and render the videos, so I've kind of caught up to where I left off, but it's a bit of a strange one because I haven't just about 3 and a bit months since I last recorded the last session of this. But between now and its end, I anticipate recording this like a normal series and cracking on quite nicely with it. So the premise of this playthrough, of course, as you know, is to play pretty much a completely different playstyle as the streamed version of this game, with our Leonardo DiCaprio lookalike, Mr. President of Swordland, Mr. Swordland, Mr. Young Sword, Mr. Selfish, Anton Rain. And the start of today's session is going to be a really interesting meeting, because it's a meeting that, well, didn't happen in the first playthrough because we didn't go down this line. And the line that we're going down is we are working with Chief Justice Hawker, who has suggested that we prepare an emergency decree, enact an emergency decree to shut down, stamp down on all of the stuff that's going on around here, but also to stop the reforms, constitutional reforms going through. The current constitution is pretty powerful enough, to be honest with you. If we were going to go through constitutional reforms, it could be a problem. This is a way around that problem. It means that we can keep our current powers, which are ample enough for what we need to achieve, without losing any of our powers, and hopefully backed up with good reason. Remains to be seen, but hey, it's where we are right now. So before we dive into that meeting, which will be, as I say, completely and utterly something new, so looking forward to seeing how that goes, we've just got some news articles that I read off camera. Of course, in the last session, also, we vetoed the Green Bill. Yeah, environment. We don't really care about the environment right now. We care about growth and money. We're in a recession, for heaven's sake. Who cares about green stuff? I know we're trying to be pro-Swordland and pro-tourism, and, you know, tourism in a smog-filled country isn't great, but hey, some areas are away from the industry, and we can kind of shoehorn the tourists down that way. So yeah, and it costs money as well, for heaven's sake. Money that we don't have. So, Green Bill, vetoed. Could be a misstep. We don't think so. But a slight twist, some good stuff that we got up to last time. We convinced Mr. Former President Alfonso to provide private housing, healthcare for his workers, and that is a triumph for worker activism, apparently. Housing, health, education support to their blue-collar workforce. Oh yes, and we played an instrumental role in the negotiation process. Forget this little caveat there. So this is the radical, of course, always has to throw something in there negative, even if we do something positive. But what about the other papers? Well, the Whole Sword Post sees the Green Act vetoing as a pragmatic move. Slightly different, take on things. So, yeah, a balanced approach, they say. But they also are quite happy with the win for the blue-collar worker support. Of course, they are the backbone of our nation. All good there. Swordland Today, the paper that we have spun in our favour through our meeting with Mr. Man himself, whose name escapes me because it's been a long time. You'll appreciate that some names may escape my tongue. But there you go. A display of a leader who listens. That's me. I listen when it suits. I think that might have been it. Oh no, and there was the Lashaven Times too. Our home city, of course, so hopefully they'll continue to write good reports about us. Overwhelmingly positive response. Yes. An inspiring speech that resonated with the working class. That's us. Man of the people. Wealthy background. Yeah, that's you. Right, okay, so there you go, that's the papers. So without further ado, we've got preparations to make. I was walking to my office. Today was the day to finally write the Emergency Act and order the execution of the decree. Talks with the leading figures of the old guard were fruitful, and the preparation for the emergency was already underway. I walked in the marble corridors of the palace thinking about the huge decisions I was going to make. My secretary greeted me at the entrance to my presidential office. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Olivia. Olivia the nosy. How are you today, sir? I'm just fine. It's good to hear. She paused before taking my coat. It looked like she had something on her mind. Mr. Rain, it may not be my place to say this, but I'm wondering about your reasoning behind this Emergency Act. The people want reforms, and delaying them will only lead to more violence. You're right, sweetheart. It isn't your place. Understood, sir. I'll take your coat now. Thank you. What did I say? Nosy? She got our heckles up when she started to ask questions about the bribe that we took with Mr. Tusk. Anyway, we left her to hang up our coat and we went into our office and sat down. Not long after, Orso and Lucian arrived. Ah, well, good morning, everyone. An auspicious day indeed. I'm glad that Lucian's here, the voice of reason, because there were some tough stances that Orso was putting forward as part of this emergency decree. You know, wiretapping, arrest without warrants, stop and search powers, searching without warrants, detention without trial, all this kind of stuff. Bit extreme. I think we've got to strike a balance here. We don't want to completely go too gung-ho, but we do want to, clamp down where we can. But we'll see how it goes. Good morning, Mr. President. It's time to start the emergency period. The situation on the streets got worse after we last met. It's because Mr. Richter made it known that our administration is blocking the reforms. Many are protesting against that now too. Regardless of who they are or what they support, the situation is clear. Let's see how we'll proceed with the President's decree. They placed a draft for the Emergency Act in front of me. After carefully examining the draft and my own notes, I buried myself in the papers. Oh. Section 1. I can just picture us lighting up a cigar right now. This is important decisions and we must get ourselves in the right state of mind. We're not quite turning to the glass of whiskey, but nonetheless. Internal threats. In accordance with Articles 57 and 58 of the Constitution, yada yada, the state bans and declares the following a national security threat, as they have been found to pose an existential threat for the Republic of Sword and public security of citizens. The following targets will be declared as terrorists. Police efforts will be directed against their members and the people who assisted them in the past. Okay. Red Youth and Workers' Party of Bludia clearly are all to blame for this. The Young Swords, not a chance. They are trying to defend our nation, clearly. And this has got nothing to do with our biased view from the fact that we were a member of the Young Swords at university, or the fact that the Young Swords are very, very, very nationalistic, even to the extreme degree. Not at all. This is a completely evidential-based decision, and both of these are, yes, terrorists. Thank you. On the basis of Article 58 of the Constitution, the following is ordered in defence against national security threats: detention without trial, suspension of the right to protest, increased police authority beyond legal limits. Right. Now this is where it gets interesting. Increased police authority beyond legal limits. So we don't want to do anything that's overly aggressive. Suspension of the right to protests. Yeah, I'm going to be on board with a bit of that. Right to protest, we're going to have to suspend that for the time being because it's a national emergency. Protests lead to people dying, so it's not a permanent thing, it's a temporary thing. Less gatherings, less problems, surely, clearly, hopefully. Detention without trial is an interesting one. But as long as we are detaining people without going beyond the legal limits and we've got good reason to detain them, in the first place, arrest them, you know, we can get to their trials eventually, I feel. But we need to be able to act quickly. So detaining people, yes. Getting them off the streets, yes. Cleaning up, I will get to the trial eventually. You know, there could be lots of people in detention. And we've already seen that the courts are under the cosh when it comes to the judicial backlog. So we don't want that to stall things. This is a necessary thing to happen. So yeah, police will act still within legal limits, but we will suspend the right to protest and we will detain without trial. I think that's a good happy medium, maybe? Right, okay, carry on. Okay, external threats. Let's have a look here. On the basis of their acts of aggressive politics, interfering in the internal affairs and disrupting sovereignty of the other. State declares a sovereignty of all terrorists might a bag on dinner's eyes. Rumberg. Now, obviously, Arcasia was mentioned in relation to the whole Richter situation. United Contana, I'm going off memory here, by the way, don't forget, it's been 3 months. The United Contana was supposed to be stoking up the Red Youth. But if we cut ties with all of these people, including the superpowers, I kind of feel we're cutting our nose off to spite our face a little bit, in that we will be completely isolated. Completely isolated. And we will be parleying with countries such as Vargsland that have ties to, say, the United Contana, and this might affect those talks, so we don't want to be completely cut adrift from anybody else out there. But Rumberg are the main threat, so cutting ties with them is a must. So I'm gonna go just for Rumberg with this one. Are you sure about your decisions? Not really. Not really, but this one definitely sure about. This one could go the whole hog, but I think if we try to at least keep some things a little bit not so overly aggressive, it might help. But then again, it could be one of those situations where you either do it all or do nothing at all, because halfway, it's just no use, not ornament to anybody. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, Rumberg only? I think so. Let's go with it. Are you sure? Still not sure, but it's what we've made. We've made our mind up. So after finishing off our cigar and stubbing it out and ticking some boxes, we shoved the final changes to Lucian and Chief Justice Hawker. Okay, and there we go. This is my I've made my mind up. What do you reckon? He says, smiling and smirking, hoping that they're going to say, oh, perfect. I think also is going to be, this is not good enough, and maybe Lucian might be a bit more diplomatic about it. We'll see. Okay, they read the decree and discussed it. Lucian spoke afterwards. Looks like the only thing left is to sign and declare the order, sir. No comments on the choices I've made? I am afraid that this will create further problems for our administration. Especially by declaring the Bloody Separatists a threat. We should expect more violence against Bloody citizens in general. Oh, What are you worried about? They are a national security threat. We can't allow bluish people to support terrorist organisations. They should have known better. Lucian looked at the decree again. With the order of this decree, we would be able to detain anybody who is suspected for a crime. I will personally lead an investigation against Mr. Richter. As soon as any other leads come up, we'll be able to get rid of him. Yes. Is he not? I mean, he's not our main target. He's one target of many, I suppose. There are other. I mean, who are we targeting with this decree? I mean, he is the main leader of the opposition who wants to push these reforms. So in his eyes, he is the main target. But we're not doing this to target anybody. We're doing this to appear like we're dealing with a national emergency. Okay? So keep it not too OTT. Whatever you say, Mr. President. But I still do not think that the police has the necessary powers to eliminate the threats effectively. I hope the precautions will prove to be enough. Well, I think the suspension of protests and gathering of crowds will be very tough on the budget of the police. And the people will not like this, especially the reformists. That's precisely who we are against, Mr. Gallard. In any case, what's left to do is to declare the emergency and get it accepted into the Supreme Court, sir. We shall plan your speech for the declaration. This will be a big moment for Swordland. I'll be in touch, Mr. President. The Supreme Court will be waiting for the declaration. Let's get to work, gentlemen. We all shook hands, and they left the room. Oh, hellfire and brimstone. This is feeling like we are going down a path of fire and brimstone. Right, law, emergency decree. This measure enables the authorities to take swift and effective action in critical situations, safeguarding the well-being of citizens and maintaining social stability. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. Okay, anything else? Workers' Party of Blue Deer banned. And so are the Red Youth. Oh dear. What do the papers make of this debacle? Let's have a look. Oh, I wanted to see if the Radical were going to report on this. Maybe they haven't got wind of it yet. Rain focuses on internal peace. Our sources informed us that the talks within the Reform Committee isn't going fruitful among the chaotic situation in Swordland. Ruin Palace is speaking of plans to focus on immediate matters like defending our nation from internal and external threats. We hope that in difficult times like now, with riots and attacks against the state, our needs as people will hopefully be answered and peace will prosper in Swordland again. According to our sources, President Rain has already put forward a plan. It is reported that he stepped up against strong opposition within the government and showed his intention to focus on our much important security problems. More news to follow. Okay, unleashing energy and analysis of EPA's potential. Just a bit of background there, nothing too urgent or major. Preparations for the annual Benfey Festival. A welcome distraction in these troubled times, I feel. Right, is it speech time? Oh boy. You need to channel your inner Gasson speech, Mr. President. Oh, here we go. Oh, it's in the assembly as well. Holy cow. Holy cow, it's all about to go to hell in a handbasket. 100%. Oh boy, here we go. Oh, we've even got the dramatic music too. Oh God. Right. I have recently signed the Emergency Act, which created a ruckus in the Swordish police forces and the Grand National Assembly. Now it was time to make a speech in the Assembly and declare the emergency in public. I walked with quick steps in the corridors of the Grand National Assembly, giving my greetings to the people I encountered on my way toward the parliamentary hall. When I entered the hall, the assembly was in complete chaos, with shouting and cursing between the parties. There was a heavy argument about a proposal made by an MP from NFP. I took my seat inside the special area reserved for the ministers. Glory was shouting from her seat at the centre of the hall as she hit the gavel 3 times, with each strike heavier than the one before. Order! Order! I saw Casaro Kibbener standing up from his seat and shouting towards members of the PFJP. Mr. Kibbener, calm yourself. Show respect to the procedures of this assembly. Despite her efforts, the argument continued for a couple of minutes before everybody took back to their seats and finally went quiet. Mr. Kibbener, next time when I tell you to do so, either take your seat or leave the hall, so we can proceed with the procedures of this assembly and continue our duties. Some MPs from the NFP side shouted back at her in protest. Honourable ladies and gentlemen, if you allow me to continue. She pointed at me with her hand. We have the President here with us today. He has an important declaration to make. The assembly, finally, fell silent. The President has the floor. I walked to the stand as loud clapping started in the USP's side. Stepping forward with confidence, eh? Hair slicked back. Tuxedo-looking flash. Crisp. Honourable members of the Assembly. I am here today to present an important decision of the state concerning the recent troubling developments in our fair country. This is what triggered it all off. We have evidence about this though. But we will go back to the root of all of these problems. Swordland has gone through a critical day in January when Bernard Circus was shot by a militant member of the Young Swords. That day marked the beginning of terror against... Oh, this is the wrong thing to say. We're landing the Young Swords in it, holy hell. I should have glossed over that bit. But this marked the beginning of terror against Swordland and its citizens. I brought attention to I better spin this back to the Red Youth side quickly. Red Youth and their actions against the public and the state can no longer be tolerated. Thus, the Swordish communist movement must be regarded as a national security threat from today onwards. The NFP members applaud. We've not vetoed the foreign powers, so we better turn our attentions now to the bloody separatists, I suppose. On top of that, we have found that the bloody separatists are planning to occupy the region of Berger and form a new nation inside our borders. Therefore, the state has decided to take extraordinary measures to handle these threats swiftly. The right to assemble in protest will be suspended for the duration of the emergency. All citizens are expected to abide by the law, and the police is given permission to use force against assembled crowds. We might as well just be honest. Suspects will not require a trial to be detained if said crime endangers the state and the well-being of its citizens. In accordance with Article 57 and 58 of the Constitution, the state holds the right to order for these measures to be taken in a situation of emergency, like we have here today. On the basis of said articles, I hereby declare a state of emergency and order the Emergency Act's swift execution. There was a loud reaction from the Assembly. Mansoon Lek, a Bluish MP who was regarded as the leader of the independents, jumped from his seat and started shouting at me. "This is fascism!" Gloria hit the gavel again. "The President has not finished." "Thank you, Miss Tory." Now, where was I? We will not stoke the fire any further, I feel. These measures, although extraordinary, were completely necessary for us to take. We must be vigilant as a nation in times of crisis, and surely we will be triumphant. I continued among applause from the USP seats. In accordance with the Emergency Act, Swordland will sever all diplomatic ties with Rumberg for their treacherous actions. We will be responding with an embargo. Swordland will stand alone if needs be. Whatever the case may be, we must be strong. I paused and took a look at the Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, we must set aside our differences. Still more applause from the USP side. I don't think we're going to get it. Ooh, I don't think it's making much of a difference, to be fair, but cooperation is the key. Trying to paint over this. We're in this together, folks. We ask for everybody's cooperation and support. The state will swiftly address the situation. I saluted the crowd. For a strong Swordland. The Assembly roared with all kinds of different reactions. While most of the USP members applauded, all of the opposition yelled in protest as I left the stand, as we would expect. Thank you for the announcement, Mr. President. The sounds of protest gradually increased as I walked towards my seat. Mansoon Lek started yelling at me again. You are just like Saul! Leave Bluish people alone! Casaro stood up from his seat and yelled back at Mansoon. You live in Swordland, Mr. Lek. You cannot fight against this country and expect it not to react. Gloria started hitting the gavel again when the situation escalated further. Order! Gentlemen, when will you learn to behave like adults? Once I was sure the Assembly's attention was on Gloria, I snuck out of the hall. After causing the chaos, we slink out. So it sounds like we've got the USP on side and of course the NFP, so that's not too shabby. It's most of the Assembly. I walked back to the palace in silence. Whoa! Wow, we have got some massive news here. Right, here we go. So let's have a look at this. Policies. Stronger presidential decrees that have priority over statute laws and may not be subject to judicial review. We've got now limited human rights due to the changes that we have made. Policies, detention without trial. So based on suspicion, even in the absence of sufficient incriminating evidence. In the absence of sufficient, rather. Okay, and suspension of protests. Aims to mitigate potential risks and maintain public safety, restore social order. Yes, of course, that's exactly what it's for. But that means that the prisons are now overcrowded. Sanitation issues, lack of access to healthcare, increased tension among inmates, wide-ranging security powers. We've embargoed Rumberg. Happy days. Happy days. Let's have a quick look at the reports here. Red Youth leader publicly announces they will not recognise emergency decree. Will you not? In response, known Red Youth headquarters were promptly raided and the terrorists there arrested by the police. Keep talking, Red Youth leader. Keep talking. At your peril. The leaders of the Workers' Party of Blue Deer also arrested, including Fethi Ajal. He declared that he will join the BFF and bring many Bluish people with him if the state continues to detain innocent Bluish people. Will you now? Arrested on terrorism charges. Keep on talking, people. You're talking yourselves into prison. Foolish, I say. Dinner with the business council members after all of this. Let's just pop out for a bit of dinner. But why not? Meeting on the Energy Protection Act. Okay, so implementation of new laws has begun. Oh, it's all exciting, isn't it? All very exciting. So to support this, we haven't had the budgets meeting yet, but to support these measures, we're gonna have to put the appropriate funding certainly into the police. So it's worth bearing in mind. Where are we? There we go. These are all new articles that I've never seen before, so we'll go through them. This is the Hull Sword Post declaring that Swordland has declared a state of emergency. We have announced that an emergency will be declared for the entirety of Swordland and a trade embargo with Rumberg. Apparently in a televised address that we have given, we've explained things. No surprise, apparently. Many of which were organised and funded by Rumberg. So this is quite pro our decision. Calm has been called for, and don't go into crowded areas until the remainder of the emergency. Thank you. Swordland Today. It was about time, says Swordland Today. People of Swordland are sick of the violence and terror on the streets. We have shown diligence by protecting our country from an unspeakable demise. Indeed, Swordland Today, indeed. It might cause some economy problems, but it's only temporary, it's fine. We are now classed as could be classed as an unstable trade partner. Shoreditch Wren has quickly gone into nosedive. Give me 1 second, folks. Got a phone call, don't know who this is. Okay, so it's just one of those spam phone calls of all things. Okay, so where are we? The Straven Times, emergency declared, facing a worried nation on the brink of a potential dramatic spike in political violence. President Rain gave a public speech. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. Okay. Okay, so this is just very quite neutral and just more informational. No sides taken here. The Lushaven Times. Let's have a look at the Radical here. Let's have a look at the Radical. They're going to love it, aren't they? Democracy on hold, declares the Radical. As Rain starts to warm his seat in the Maroon Palace, we can now see him for what he really is. An authoritarian like his predecessor, Colonel Sol. A new emergency act serves only to destroy the opposition against the president, who the state claims to be enemies of the state. This is a sick move against the peaceful protesters on the street, as well as all opposing voices who have a platform. Thousands are already in jail and many more are expected to follow. President Rain stands to bring down the insecure authoritarianism that once the founder of his party promoted, which inflicted many wounds to this country that never healed. We have seen this coming years ago and warned our citizens of the threat the USP poses for our country. The party now has apparently seen the incoming threat to their rule with a decrease in their supporters and decided to finally take control with force. Not at all, Radical. Not at all. But here's the international response. The Alliance of Nations are watching Swordland with worry. Arcasian President Dwight Walker condemned the declaration, as well as the events leading up to the event. And even the United Continental leader said this is not a good sign of a good leader. Only the Republic of Valen seemed to be approving. While all other neighbours have disapproved of the move. So this could have some wide-reaching consequences to future talks and the like. But hey, we are doing what we need to do here for the good of the country. Right, time for dinner. We've done enough work today. So back to my hometown. We were in Lushaven to work with the Business Council to assess weaknesses in the economy. Simon organised a dinner with the affluent economic figureheads of Swordland. We were escorted by heavily armed police forces as well as the Presidential Guard. When we arrived, the streets were quiet and police forces were patrolling everywhere. The emergency was felt in the vacant city. Together with Walter Tusk, Edith Agnock, Mikhail Arvin and Simon Hall, we entered the renowned Asteria restaurant by the coast. A short blonde man whose embroidered pocket read manager greeted us and waved his arms in excitement as he told us how pleased he was to have us in his establishment. Beaming with pride, he led us to a private room and got us seated at a large table, covered for the occasion with a maroon tablecloth. We were quickly served by a group of servers. Walter spoke as they started taking our orders. I recommend the Lushaven salmon of this place, President. I know that you're from Lushaven, but I bet you haven't tasted anything like this before. Don't get me wrong, Mr. Tusk, but of course I've tasted this greatness many times here already. Oh, excuse me, President. I should have known that a man of your calibre would be a regular at Asteria. Of course we'll order the shaven salmon, not to be outdone by Mr. Tusk. Rice, please. The servers placed glasses in front of each of us and served bread and water. After they were done taking orders, they quickly left us alone in the private room. Several of the heavily armed guards were also inside with us, protecting every entrance and exit. Mr. President, I didn't have the possibility to thank you for coming today. Your presence means a great deal. Indeed, sir. It's an honour to dine with you. Thank you. We should thank Simon for organising this meeting. Oh, no need for that. I hope everybody enjoys the evening. Simon gestured at the expensive-looking red wine bottle that one of the servers had just brought to the table. Mr. President? We simply nod. He started to carefully pour some wine in my glass and waited for me to taste it before filling it up. I swirled it, watched the legs run down, gave it a sniff, and then sipped. And then he filled it up. The taste of the wine was immediately stimulating and delightful to my palate. It immediately reminded me of our visits to my father's vineyard when I was a little kid. The wine's sweet and bitter flavours exploded in my mouth. The aroma of gooseberries and lilacs, which you referenced there, tumbled across my tongue, and my mouth tingled with them long after I'd swallowed. How is it? Is it taste to your liking? Yes. Tastes like heaven, Simon. Reminds me of my father's vineyard. I've heard that he was a big wine connoisseur. May he rest in peace. Thank you. Simon filled up my glass. After filling everybody's glasses, Simon stood up and raised his glass. I'd like to raise a toast to all of you here today. We're meeting here tonight in difficult times, but I believe that with hard work, cooperation and trust, we will get through this period as well. I'd like to thank Mr. Rain, again, for his decisiveness in office. I'm sure we will get through this emergency period and come out stronger. I also thank Mr. Tusk for being here with us today. His presence is an honour. And of course, my colleagues from the Business Council, Mrs. Agnock and Mr. Avon. Without you, none of these would have been possible. Now, let's drink to the future cooperation and growth. For a prosperous Swordland. Everybody raised their glasses and toasted each other. After a couple more minutes, the servers arrived with our meals. When I tasted the food, I went back to my past. It reminded me of my childhood in this city. Even though I couldn't recall much about my father, I remembered that he also loved the food of Asteria. All of us started eating. Walter stopped and looked at the guards before turning to me. I know that we are in a state of emergency, Mr. Rain, but can't we even eat alone? What are they protecting here? They already have surrounded the whole restaurant. We've all seen what happens when security is lax, Mr. Tusk. Bernard Circus springs to mind. So they have to be prepared for every eventuality. Who's to say that one of these members of staff wouldn't take umbrage to this decree and, well, cause us great harm? I see, yes, well, you didn't look too pleased about the whole situation. So, how did you find the food of the best fine dining restaurant in the Shaven, Mr. President? Fine food is like an art, Edith, but this particular one is a masterpiece. I know exactly what you mean. Art is something else. It embodies so much about us and the world surrounding our lives. And food There is an art of everything. The art of making money, food, wine, and love. How are things going in the Maroon Palace? The pressure must have increased after you attended that funeral. Yes, well, let's not worry and dwell on the past, and let's focus our attention to the future. And I have to say, as far as I can see, the future is looking good. We will swiftly wipe out these threats, and Swordland will come out of this stronger and more united than ever. I'm confident of that. That's great to hear. As we conversed with Mikhail, I heard Walter raise his voice in an apparent argument with Edith and Simon. We both stopped to listen. Arcasia knows the right way of doing business. Their approach to the world is real and raw. I'd prefer that cutthroat approach in comparison to the niceties. Well, I mean, it's a nice country to visit too. I have travelled there often on business trips. Their attitude on... All countries are nice to visit if you have the cash. Yes, we will let them continue. Mikhail joined in. It certainly depends on what you're looking for. Cultural tourism doesn't require a fancy hotel. Last time I went somewhere for that sort of thing was at university, and even then we had our wild times thanks to Conrad's connected entourage. Also, Walter is taking us down the rabbit hole again. By the way, I saw that underhaul construction has already started with the railway construction. That project will surely boost our economy. The mood is already very positive. I have to congratulate Mr. Rain for starting such a massive project. Thank you for your support, Mr. Alvin. Of course. Mr. Hall also deserves credit, of course. Ah, great economy minister. Is there a joke coming? Why? I thought you said you were great at economy. He laughed. I've heard that you've bought a new villa, Simon. I don't comment on rumours, but I'll make an exception since we're, well, among friends. It is true? Ah. Where is this property, Simon? You've kept that quiet? It's a small seaside villa at the outskirts of Conriad. It's just a modest house with a swimming pool, small golf course in the property. You know how it is. Ah. Becoming neighbours with Mr. Cronte, I see. Not really. His place is very remote. Conriad has a way of pulling certain people in, it seems. Edith, who was sitting to my left, gently put her hand over my arm for a few seconds. Come on, let's not talk about finance or politics for now. We came here to relax. She turned to Walter and Simon. Isn't that right, gentlemen? They nodded at her and took a sip from their drinks. She slightly leaned towards me. So, Mr. Rain, why don't you tell us what's behind that strong character of yours? I've heard that your father was a very wealthy man. Would you say that it contributed a lot to your success? I'm not really. My success has nothing to do with that, I will admit. It's all to do with my hard work, of course. Of course not. You've worked hard for it. After all, money can't buy diligence. I've never met your family, Mr. President. How are they doing, if you don't mind me asking? They're doing great, Simon. No problems at all. Ah, it's great to hear. Your son must be very proud of you. Family is everything. My advice would be to make sure that Frank has a solid relationship with you. He is your future, after all. Yes. He's going through a difficult teenage period, I will admit. He's a little shy as well, but don't worry, I'll bring him out of it. Wish that was my son's biggest problem. Darren seemed to be doing fine. I saw that his yacht party in Benfey made the local news. Well, the rascal didn't even ask for permission to use the yacht, and just took it. He basically stole it. Good news is that I finally convinced him to go to university. He will study economics in Leshaven Business School. Ah, that's a good choice. Having a degree in Swordland separates you from the rabble, and we especially need more people who understand economics. Talking of which, it's great that we have another leader who actually studied economics and understands it, like Mr. Alfonso. Yes, thank you. I hope we can repair the damage to our economy. We can't fail like Alfonso did. Correction. It wasn't his policies that destroyed him. Walter looked at the guards inside the room. Yes, Mr. Tusk. Everybody knows that. Let's just say that he threatened the economic power base of some powerful figures within the government with his vast privatisation plan, and they removed him. And now they're backing you. Walter, stop with the conspiracy theories. I think we've had enough drinks. Everyone went quiet. After a long silence, followed by some chit-chat, Walter ordered a bottle of whiskey. That's one good-looking bottle. The waiters brought one of the finest Arcasian whiskies. It was time for a toast. Simon, would you give us another toast again, please? Sure, yes. Simon stood up. He seemed to have a slight issue with his balance. May the wheels of fortune always turn in our favour. The future of abundance awaits us. Cheers to that. I think it's time we call it a night. Edith stood up. Most of us were all a little tipsy at this point. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for joining us, and you, Simon, for putting all this together. Thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure. After recent times, it's been good to let my hair down. It was great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. After bidding our farewells, we slowly walked out the restaurant. The moon was shining bright as everyone except Walter left in their luxury cars. President, a moment alone, please. He gestured at the guards and then called me inside the small VIP lounge. We followed him inside. Usually the Loverberg spokesman doesn't directly comment on the administration, but I'd like to say a few things since this was a special evening. I'm all ears. We are really concerned about the state of emergency. We find ourselves worrying about the future. We need stability for business to function. So if you want us on your side with our capital, there are a few requests on our end. Walter lit his cigar and took a few drags before continuing. Many in the group are disappointed in the economic direction that you took by promoting an inefficient planned economy. Okay, well, we made promises during the election. Promises that I firmly, strongly believe in. And that was the reason behind the decision. Political motivations are admirable, but economics is about numbers, and the current reality, not the past. He looked me in the eye. We had a deal about the first mega infrastructure project. You held on to that promise and awarded the contract to Underhall Construction. This went well in our book. We are aware of the upcoming tax meeting, and it would be a step in the right direction if private corporations would get a tax cut. To boost the economy with job creation, of course, and the positive side effect would be our support to the administration through the entire term. Okay. I'll consider it. Oh, let's not be hasty. The recession will end if Loverberg is on your side, President. Why can't we all just be friends? I'm not saying we can't. Maybe we can. I'll see what I can do. Oh, excellent. Glad to hear this. The only thing the group wants is a private corporation tax cut, and we will fully support your administration. Oh, I have to make a promise here. We've had a few glasses. Walter Tusk has pulled through for us so far. Bribe money, check. Underhaul on target, check. Bit of a private tax corporation cut. I've not done this in either of my two playthroughs, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes by doing it this time. So, yeah. Wines, cigars, meeting with Mr. Tusk. Do you know what, Mr. Tusk? Yeah. I think I will pass a private corporation tax cut. The Loverberg Group support would mean a lot in these troubled times. I'm very satisfied to hear this. To us and the prosperous, sorry, too much wine and whiskey, prosperous future of Swordland. He smiled. Glad we could come to an agreement, Walter. See you, President. Walter left, and Sergei came to pick me up. I entered the car, and we drove to our residence in the Shaven. Sergei took the seaside route. Okay, bing, bing, bing! So we got briefings, we got more paper updates, and we have, of course, the meeting about the Energy Protection Act, which we are not going to be changing. So, there you go, folks. We are just short of the hour mark. exciting. So I'm making decisions here that I haven't made in any of my 2 playthroughs, the one in the stream and the one I played off camera, so I'm really itching to see how they play out, especially this emergency act situation. Will we make it to the end of our term? And if we do, just what state will the country be in? And how are we going to get re-elected, perhaps? I don't know. This is all part of the fun, finding out what happens at the end, if we're not assassinated before then. But anyway, there you go. Enjoy the rest of your evening, folks, and more of this will be coming your way pretty soon. So until next time, it's bye for now.